Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience. One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build with ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss. And she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build with ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start out our week like first thing, well, not really first thing, but kind of first thing for us. We got in the office, got some work done, and now we're going to record episode number 70.
Boom.
Get rolling.
Through.
Yeah. We just got back from Calgary last night. We were there for Hulk waterproofing and pool liners and roof coatings. And
Expanded our knowledge. We've been ICF waterproofing experts for a while, but now we feel like we're experts on epoxies and pool coatings and STPE roof coatings.
oh my gosh. I don't know. I
So
would not
much
say
knowledge.
experts. I would say we know what not to do.
Yeah, crazy.
There was a lot of information, but it was great. So we spent last week up in Calgary learning all of that stuff, and now we're back in the office, and it's time
Way to
to run.
go. So I'm excited. We set this up. So we actually, I like when we're getting to a point where we get some people reaching out to us and saying, hey, we'd like to come on and talk about our story and what we're doing. And you kind of check through it and stuff. And I dig into this and I get a, email, then you got to check out this guy. Like, he's a very unique situation where, where his background comes from and how into ICF he is now. So today we've got Sam Fertik on with us, Carbon Custom Homes, and like, super cool story. I don't even want to ruin it with any teasers because I'm just going to bring Sam in and let him tell the story because it's super cool, but just a great way to, to have for people to see kind of where people's roads and paths bring them into ICF and how everyone's got a little bit different story and how passionate people can get about stuff. So Sam, thank you for coming on today. We really appreciate you being here, and let's go ahead and jump right in and tell people a little bit who you are.
It's hard to get in through an ICF wall with a very strong waterproofing coating and an epoxy layer. So it's hard. You're hard people to reach.
So tell us a little about yourself. How did you get here? Who are you, and what do you do?
We started Carbon Custom Builders 6 years ago, and we're now part of what we call Carbon Group because we have a family of companies that are all related in different ways. And the easy one for me was we're building homes in this country the way George Washington built his house. And the biggest advance that we've basically had was plywood or some of those sheathing products that I'm sure you guys would agree are like cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, there's got to be a different way. My daddy wasn't a builder and my granddaddy wasn't a builder. And so like, I didn't come into this with this preconceived notion of like exactly what, here's how you do it, here's why you do it, and that's what it is. And I ask why on just about everything. And, fast forward years ago, we did an addition on one of our family homes where there were no concrete workers available because kind of the typical concrete construction companies were all stacked up with a big, commercial project. And I said, hey, there's this Lego thing. You can like put it together and just do it yourself. My father-in-law looks at me and goes, no, but we'll find someone who knows how to do it. And we did. And that's where I learned it. That was kind of the first interaction I had with ICF. And, go forward some more. And we're renovating an 1850s bank building that we bought. And I turned into apartments and retail space and all of that. I'm ripping walls open and I'm like, this is a real 2x4. But like, other than that, there's nothing different about that structure from 150 years ago to what the average American home was today. And it was a real aha moment for me on what are we doing, right? Like, we all walk around with a phone in our pocket that could launch a, rocket to the moon. And we're still like, all right, we cut a tree and then we ship that tree And then we frame that tree up, we put trees and trees, and we're living in a tree house, people. Like, what are we doing? So that was really how I got to the point of saying, like, there's got to be a better way, and researching into it and thinking about it just from an outside perspective more than anything.
So you, and backing up even a little bit further, so you began, kind of to give people an idea, but even before construction, though, came from the culinary world, correct?
Yeah, so I was a chef. I went to the Culinary Institute of America, or as we like to call it, the CIA.
I've heard of it.
We had knives. They have guns, right? It's not as fun, but so, classically trained chef, but I'd always done real estate. And then I started a catering company in New York City, and we did huge events and daily feeding operations for big, big companies. And I built our catering kitchen, right? Like, I was looking to build our next facility. And I was tired of that whole life, and had always loved real estate and construction. And the interesting thing with being a chef is that you're creating a moment, like a little experience for someone, that little bite, that first sip, the taste, but that's gone in a millisecond. And when you construct something, you get to create that experience over and over and over again. And so something, especially in the homes that we design or build that are, kind of more in our control versus a client's control, is what does each of those experience feel like and look like? And ICF and concrete and steel, all of these things create a feeling in a home that we say all the time. Like, you just don't get it until you walk into one and you go, I feel different in this. And the experience aspect keeps going, right? That window today has a deer, tomorrow has a chicken, tomorrow it's snowing, it's raining. So you keep creating new experience. It doesn't go away. And that's kind of the link that I like to say is what brought me to this, is the creative, the ability to create, and the experience, but now it's actually there. And we call it 1,000-year home because it's not going to go anywhere unless you bring quite a bit of dynamite and a lot of willpower, right?
Yeah.
So,
dude, that's amazing. And I'm sure you're familiar with, but one of the books that is my favorite business book, period. And I have zero background in culinary other than stuffing my face with it, but or restaurants. But Unreasonable Hospitality is one of the best books I think you can read. And I think we've tried to bring that into the construction world, reading that book, and basically talks about just what you're talking about, making experiences for people. And he's bringing it in from the restaurant standpoint and hospitality standpoint. We try to do that for our customers in business, where we're literally saying, okay, we need to, give them something they'll remember and talk about. I mean, even before we got recording here, we were talking about business cards and how you do your business cards different, because it is that experience that you need people to remember. And it's so cool to hear you bring it from, like I said, the small bite that people may forget about after they leave to something they live in and wake up in every morning. And we've said that for years. I mean, I've never met anyone that's lived in an ICF house that ever would want to ever live in you talk about cardboard and wood and all this stuff. I call it firewood, that wants to live in a firewood house again, because once you've lived in an ICF house, the difference is something you can only feel. You can't even really explain it to people. It's just totally different. So and I guess your point on the experience side, like, our business card's a solid piece of steel, basically. And it is that first bite, but it lasts with someone. And we have a construction management practice here that's just set up a little bit different, because again, it's not like the same thing. And we have a director of client experience, right? She's here to remember your cat's name or your kid's name or that detail about the hook that you hate in the bathroom and whatever, because it is an experience at the end of the day that we're crafting for folks. And it's not just about, it looks pretty, or, the guts are better, or any of the things that I'm sure you guys have your parts of this whole process. You're like, that's actually the most important piece. But someone else is going to say the marble on the floor at the end is the most important piece. And so I think we've looked at the whole process and life cycle and try to do better with it every day. Yeah, it is an entire cycle, and that's what people got to look at. We back it up to the beginning because we're so involved with the actual envelope that we tell people all the time. I go, people spend so much time picking out their granite and worrying about what the granite is, but if your house is letting the cold in or the heat in constantly, what's the point of how pretty your granite is if the house isn't performing correctly? Or, and even taking it back to, I'm working very deeply right now into all the fire stuff, with Palisades and some rebuilds and different things. And so we're sitting here looking at stuff like, do do you think the 7,000 houses that burned down in Palisades really care about what the marble on the floor was, because we wanted to start with that safety. But taking it from
Well,
your
the only thing
standpoint,
that survived was the marble on the floor at this point.
exactly, it's still there. But it is when you're looking at it from a general contracting standpoint and being a project, managing that project, if you're willing to have that kind of care and thought go into the envelope that nobody really even sees after we get it covered up, then you carry that on through to the end with your project managers going through and looking at, like I said, the hooks and the hardware and all the different stuff, then that just shows how much you care about the entire project. I mean, you're talking about from beginning to end, from the foundation walls and the outside exterior envelope to, those finishes. That's what makes you guys, a premier luxury builder right there. That's the big difference. So Heather's
Yeah, I
been
mean, I
doing it for a
definitely say
long
all the
time.
like, no one thinks about the guts as much as we do.
Yep.
And like, if the guts are strong, then it doesn't matter if you want it to be clad in gold or marble or wood or whatever you want it to look like. We'll make it look like that. But the goal for us is to build the best house from the inside out, because those are the decisions that are way more expensive to fix later, and sometimes impossible to fix later.
Yeah.
And so it's a good philosophy that I feel like, none of the luxury builders around us, and we're in a very high net worth and luxury focused area, right? The Gold Coast of Connecticut, Westchester County, the Hudson Valley, the Hamptons. And sure, like the exposed concrete homes with like really nice steel and glass and concrete. Yeah, like those are bulletproof, right? But
Mhm.
like a lot of these folks are buying 20 and 30 and $50 million houses. And what are they using? A 2x8? Like,
Yeah.
it's not that much better.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild to me.
Have you seen in your area, are you seeing an increase with ICF? Or you kind of got your own little niche there? Are what's it looking like out there? Because I think that's the one thing as we, give a plug for our new association, the World Insulated Concrete Form Association, WICFA, that we started here this last month, and it's going great. And got lots of cool news about that we'll bring out on the next episode.
Mhm.
But we just through our starting this new association revolving just around our industry of the insulated concrete forms, one of the things we're hearing from people as they sign up is that they're really excited about is that our whole goal is advocacy and PR, basically bringing awareness to people that, hey, this is an option. You don't have to build houses out of stick, out of firewood anymore. We have an option. And so are you seeing that there's some adoption out there? Are you just by yourself out there hacking through the jungle, or is there
I
some
mean,
others?
there's definitely folks around and some other builders that, you know, see some of the value. I mean, we are not a strictly ICF company,
Mhm.
right? Where some are. At the end of the day, we're a custom construction management company with a focus on building a better house from the inside out. And so we have projects now where it's an ICF basement or an ICF foundation, but like it's a stick frame house on
Mhm.
top.
Mhm.
And, and I didn't really have the ability to switch the whole thing or to make the case for a variety of reasons. But what I will say is that our clientele is extraordinarily educated.
Mhm.
And I think the difference there, and I say this quite often, is there's three things that most of our ultra high net worth individuals talk about. And that, in addition to the pretty factor, right? That it's architecturally interesting or whatever it is, they talk about their environment, their air, and their water.
Mm.
And so when we go about it, we almost work backwards in some instance and saying, hey, you care about your air quality, right? Because you live in New York City and now you're building a house in the burbs and whatever. Well, if we build you a better box, a more contained box, I can give you better air quality, right? It's not leaking as much. I'm able to control it. Oh, okay, great. Well, what else do you like? I hate noise. Oh, you hate noise. Why? Well, you lived on Fifth Avenue and all you heard all night was a garbage truck. Of course you hate noise. I lived there too. I get it. Well, if I build you this building that's got a massive amount of thermal mass and insulation and everything else, I can basically make it silent, right?
Mhm.
Oh, well, I want this huge house, but like, I want to be energy efficient because I want to balance it out. Okay, great. Well, here's another, benefit, right? We're going to use less energy and deliver this much, much larger home because they're going to get what they want anyway, right? These aren't the people who are going to say, I don't need a 10,000 square foot house. I only need 2,000 and I'm worried about the environment. they're going to build the 10,000 square foot house anyway. They're just going to end up building it with someone who's going to care less about making it better.
Mm-hmm.
And water quality, and this one doesn't really relate as much, but generally once we get past the first two, they start thinking about the water quality. And we say, well, we're very focused on these first two, and we're going to focus on that one for you also. And the typical way that I describe it is I've got a 5-gallon bucket of water, and it's got a spigot on the bottom, and it's in the back of a pickup truck, and it's strapped to the tailgate. And you drive down the highway, and how much water is going to spill out after a mile? I have no idea. You have no idea. There's no way to determine that. That's the average American house built to code. It's going to have some water left in the bucket, but there's no control over it. And when we build, whether it's an exposed concrete house or an ICF house, or some better version of the typical, like we're doing some light gauge steel houses for a variety of reasons, from cantilevers to bearing, whatever, but the same concept of making it really, really strong and durable and sealed. We're putting a lid on the bucket, we're putting a hose on the spigot, and then we're deciding how much we want to let it drop and drip out of the bucket. And I can tell you for sure how much water is going to be left in that house after a mile down the road, right? In that bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I explain that to most people, they start to go, I got it. And then you bring them into a project and they feel it. Like we were saying, they feel the difference. And they're typically just like, why wouldn't I do this? So
that's the bigger picture. I think that's what, Heather's done a really good job with that. We joke all the time because I'm the big hairy guy that looks like the builder, and then Heather's the actual general contractor in the family. So I actually just back up trailers and lift things, and she does all the contractor work. But that's something that you've talked about for a long time. Is like,
do you build pyramids? You just put them down?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you asked.
It broke up. What was that, Sam?
I said, so you built the pyramids. You pick things up and put them back down.
That's me, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly. I like to think of myself as that kind of important.
And look, those lasted for thousands of years, so it's very similar to an ICF house. There you go.
Exactly. Seemed to work for them. So, but yeah, I think that that's been Heather's thing, is like how you bring that all the way through and making sure that we're doing quality all the way through. Like, because you can't, just like you said, that like driving around with the bucket, we joke all the time, like people go, oh, well, you can make these, a concrete house. Yeah, but if you've put crap windows in them and let all the energy out, or you gimp on the doors, or it's like getting people to, they feel like, well, I did the one big thing and then now I can chintz out on other stuff. And you're like, no, it's an entire package. It's an envelope. It's,
yep.
You got to look at it that way. And they just don't, for, whatever reason, people don't wrap their head around that sometimes, where you're trying to say, okay, you can't just, especially doors and windows is an easy target for us, because we get people all the time like, oh, well, I found these ones online from China that I can order. And you're like, no. Like, you've gone to this much effort to try to build an energy efficient house. But then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're, chintzing out on something else.
And it's not that the, where the windows come from or anything like that. It's that, like, they can't actually see the windows and get all that information from the very beginning. We don't know anything about the quality of those windows that they're getting. And 9 times out of 10, when you have a client that is doing that, they're only looking at one aspect of that, and they're looking at the price.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah.
And you've got to look at the whole gamut of it.
We import, so I have 5 different window factories that we work with around the world, and we import windows direct for 90% of our projects, so that we can give them the price, and we can give them the quality, and we can give them the experience of, we know this product.
Right.
Yes.
And I've been to the factories in Poland, and I've been to the factories in Canada, and I know what we're getting. They're in my own house, right? They're in other projects that we've done. So we can show that and understand that it is a crucial part to the whole thing.
Yes,
for sure.
It's the experience that you're bringing to the table, and that's what I feel like. That's our job as designers, architects, general contractors. Construct. That's our whole job, is to educate our clients and say, okay, just because let's go the opposite of this. Just because something is 4 times more expensive as this other option does not mean it's 4 times better. So it's our job really to educate those clients and steer them and make sure that we're building them the house that they want, the house that they can afford, and really meeting all those expectations.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
the big thing, it sounds like you guys do obviously very well, is you're creating something, you're thinking so far down the line. Like you're creating something they're going to love in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, not, oh, you're going to think this is really cool when we hand you the keys and then we're out of here and we don't have to worry about it. And I think a lot of people do it that way. And I think the
Yep.
biggest key, and takeaway from any of our listeners that are listening, if you're trying to, pick a contractor that cares about what your life in that house is going to be like 10 years from now, not what it's going to be like on the day they hand you the keys, and give you your fruit basket and leave, like this is a bigger picture thing. And that's what we're starting with the ICF all the way through the end product, is how
Absolutely.
does that house
And
operate?
we say this all the time that, look, schedule and budget are important in this business, but that's not as important as building the right thing.
Mhm.
And if you got into the house 2 months early and $200,000 cheaper, but you hate what you built, or the quality's not there, or you're not happy with it in 5 years, you're not going to go back and say, thank goodness we saved 2 months at the time and 200 grand or even $2 million, because at the end of the day, you're living with these are when you custom build, especially if it's like probably your forever home type of situation, you're living with that decision for a very long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it's not an easy, especially in a concrete house, but it's not an easy thing to go and change later.
Yeah. Yeah. And we
always joke. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're all right. Go ahead.
I was just saying, we always joke, and no one's let me do it yet, but I'd really like to build a small stick frame shed and a small ICF shed next to each other and take an excavator and whack the corner of one and whack the corner of the other and use that as the demo of like, which one would you rather live in?
Yeah.
But that everyone tells me it's too kitschy, but we're going to do it at some point.
I
Well,
love it.
let us know. Maybe that's a WICFA thing. Maybe we can do through our association. We want to do so. We're working with the Insulated, with the ICFMA and with the NRMCA on a lot of different testing stuff, and talking about redoing some of the tests that we've seen. But definitely the projectile, firing projectiles at things and trying to blow things up is high on our list of fun things to do, that we want to really show the visual of what that can do. So that might be part of our testing. Maybe we'll have to come out and do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look through my pictures too. I know we have one builder here locally that was building his personal home building with ICF, and they were flying the trusses on a windy day, and the crane actually tipped, not and leaned up against the house, ICF house. Had that been a wood structure, the whole thing would have fallen over. And because it was ICF, they just moved the crane back, had the engineers come out and take a look at it. It was all good to go, and
Kept on going.
Kept
Put the
on
trusses
moving.
on.
Don't get me started on wood trusses on an ICF house. It's like, know.
That's another episode.
I could probably go on for at least 7 hours just about that concept. But,
Well, I know you have another appointment after this, so we can hop into like our 3 questions, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your answers on these, just because it's so interesting to me how, we talk to a lot of people that start off as, I call it like a DIY, like you were talking about with your father-in-law, and doing we could do this ourselves. We could stack these Legos up. And then you moved it into a business. So you went from a DIYer to an industry pro. So it's very interesting
well, I
to me.
didn't DIY it because he stopped me from doing it.
He wanted to.
And I wanted to. But the funny part is that, when I bought the building that we renovated, and it was my father-in-law and my wife and my mother-in-law and I, and we all went on in this, and it's a beautiful old bank building. Like, it had really gorgeous guts. And he looks at me and he goes, well, who's going to do the work? And this is before I had the company, really, right? And said that I was going to do this. And I was like, what do you mean who's going to do the work? I'm going to do the work. And he's like, what do you mean you're going to do the work? How do you know what you're doing? And so we joke that I learned everything on YouTube. And, and I had a couple of burly Vermonters up there with me who picked things up and put them back down again. But in 11 months, we got 15 apartments and 5 retail spaces and hand scraped floors and renovated the whole thing. And so, I think the DIY is probably in me a little bit at the time, but
Well, and I think it's even bigger. Like, I mean, I think everybody's, but same concept. It's like we say DIY, but like it's basically coming from the concept of seeing something that, you wanted to do, but there wasn't, readily available, a lot of people available to do it. So therefore, we always talk about be the solution. If you have a problem, make sure be the solution, come with a solution. You came with a solution, and that meant I'm going to do it myself, and we're going to figure out if we got to hire some guys or what we're going to do this and get it done. But the cool thing is you went from just taking on a project, let's say, to running a very successful business now, related to that thought process, that pivot. I'm a big pivot guy. Like I talk about all the time. One of my companies is actually the V in the name is actually a pivot symbol in my logo, because I believe in the pivot so much. I think that our whole lives are all about pivots. You can't keep your foot planted in one thing and you pivot to something different. And you never totally jump in most cases. It's always kind of a pivot. And I mean, you're a prime example of that happening, right? Like taking knowledge from one thing you started in and pivoting to something, and now look at what it is with Carbon Custom Homes. Is a totally different situation now that you've pivoted into, but very successfully. So that's pretty cool. So
I mean, putting a house together is a recipe.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And no restaurant, no successful chef changes the recipe in the middle of dinner service. But do they go back the next day and say, I think it needs a little more acid, or it needs a little more this, or whatever. And that's what we do in our process mentality here. We're a very process and systems based construction manager. We have cost management, budget management, meetings. Everything's in one really easy to use system for clients, consultants, the architecture team, our team. And we look at that every day and we say, how can we be a little better? How can we do better on this? How can we, adjust and just keep pushing it forward? And so when you put together a home, you're putting millions and millions of little parts and pieces together. And I think what we've in general done not so great is we keep debating things that we don't need to debate anymore, right? Height of a light switch, or location of outlet, or, how big a reveal bead should be around a door. Like some of these things, like it's done. The goose is cooked, and it's time to move on to more important things.
It's so interesting to think of all the analogies that actually kind of span over from restaurant, hospitality, food, where you're talking about, like, especially as a chef, you get known for something, right? That people come to your restaurant to eat this dish that you make, right? And they want to eat it the way you make it because it's famous, but there's that drive of, like, you still have to do things differently. You can't just serve the same dish for 20 years as a chef and rely on, there's a certain aspect of, like, yes, they came here for this dish I make, but they also there needs to be some cool new stuff happening all the time. You got to be changing up. And I feel like the construction world is very similar. Like, people come for this house that you build, or this type of house you build, but that you're constantly changing the trim or new items or new things to make it different, but they still want to come back to that quality construction or quality thing.
You just invented, the restaurant special. Congratulations.
Yeah. Exactly. Here's the special of the day. Yeah, you doing that same thing with houses. What's the special of the day? So,
right.
I love it.
And I guess to your point is, like, if the steak is really great at the steakhouse and they don't, change the broiler and they don't change the method and they figured that out, that's what I think ICF and concrete and steel have in common, is, like, that's this is the steak that we should be coming back for. And for some reason, and I guess none of the vegetarians should take this the wrong way, but, like, now we've got vegetarianism. And it's like, no, like, we've got the steak, stick to the steak, right?
I love it.
At the base.
All right, I know you have your
Okay.
your couple of questions that
So-
you want to get to, and I'm sure we could chat all day.
I know we could.
Definitely.
I know.
We
Especially,
may have multiple episodes coming.
So, okay. So question number 1, what is your most memorable experience since beginning Carbon Custom Homes?
I think from an ICF perspective, I have 3 small ones that I'd like to share. So the first is, I had a customer who we're building their house now, and it was when we were building my home, and the first floor walls are up. The basement's, doesn't have a slab in it yet, but the steel framing's in for the floors, and there's no windows, there's no second floor, there's no bracing. And customer walks in, kind of like taps the edge of the concrete, touches the foam, and goes, "Oh, this'll do." And, like, that was it. And now we're building this incredible house on a mountain for him with an amazing national architect, and, just like, but it was just such a, like, to my point of, like, the feeling, like, there's there's feeling and then there's just like touching, and that was just touching, right?
Yeah.
And he got it then and still gets it today. And so that was really exciting. The second one for me is when my daughter, we have floor to ceiling windows, and she's probably 3 years old, and the house is just about sheetrocked, and she's walking into the very deep window wells that you end up creating with these deep wall sections. And I had designed this one section of the guest hall where it was meant to be like slices and moments of the windows. Could have easily just been a wall of glass, right? But I liked the idea that there was some alignment and there was a reason and things. And she, at like 3 years old, is walking into each of those deep window wells without any, no one told her to do it. And I was like, so she's experiencing the architecture and the whole thing, and like, just as it was intended. And that was just a great, like, okay, you don't need a thin window section. Our office here is just a brick building, so it's a little different, but you can benefit from this experience in the moment.
Just innocently. She's just innocently enjoying the architecture of it. That's pretty cool.
And I think the last one for me is on my house was, when we did the last concrete lintel over the big double height foyer, and it's just a thin, it's only about 2 feet tall maybe. And we had done all this sloped concrete at the tops of the ICF walls because it's a barn shape. And so it's essentially balloon framed, and the roof rafters run into the ICF, and that angle continues, and the sheathing goes right out to the outside edge of the foam. So everything is sloped at like an 8 pitch in the ICF and the concrete at the top, which is a fun detail to figure out bolts and do and whatever. And the last piece we had to pour was this just flat lintel over a flat section of the flat roof. And I was able to put my hands and our initials and the date as like our little topping off ceremony. And that was the first full ICF house that we had done up to the roof level, right? We'd done huge basements and huge foundations and whatever, but I'd not gotten to the point of like, I poured and we poured gables here too on the second floor, and floating gables in concrete, which wasn't as exciting. But that moment for me was really cool to be like, this is here and it's going to be here for like a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So that was super cool.
That's very cool.
That's awesome.
All right. You want to ask the second one?
Yeah. So when you're looking at this, I mean, especially, as somebody that's been in it for 25 years and have been looking at all the things coming up, it seems like the world's just completely changed in our ICF world as, all these new products and different things out there. I love to hear it from everybody else's eyes. Like, what do you see, when you're looking at ICF specifically, is there anything you're excited about, like future wise, like coming down the pipe for us in our industry that you like, whether it's a product or a project or anything like that you're excited about, you think is going to be really cool for us?
I mean, I think there's some things that I'd like to see that I don't think anyone's done yet, which I'm not going to say on here because I don't want to give anyone any ideas.
Yeah, don't do that.
Genius. But I do think, I'm hoping to see some materiality shifts. I'm hoping to see some flexibility shifts. I'm hoping to see it get used more and more and make the concrete itself also more carbon neutral because it's getting used more. People will invest in it more, right? They'll think about it more. I mean, it's true of anything, right? If people didn't like the wheel or the car, we wouldn't have what we have today because they would have said, okay, it's a dead product. So if we use it more, I think we'll get more innovation around it also, which would be really cool. One of the big ones for me is like, we do a lot of exposed concrete work also, architecturally exposed concrete. And, typically the ICF solutions for that are kind of mediocre as a whole, and so I'd like to see that evolve. So we'll see. There's these pre-cut programs now, which are cute. I haven't used it yet. We haven't really had a chance to use it yet. I could see some benefit there, but I think we're getting there,
Yeah, I think that you're dead on. And I think I go back to probably the first innovation that I felt like, and I'm sure there's more, but in my own opinion, the first innovation that I saw where I literally was like, oh, we're really doing something now. We're changing something in our industry, or maybe we're going to stick around and it's going to be here for a while, was when Simpson Strong Tie came out with an ICF hanger, right? All of a sudden it was like, oh, they really believe we're going to be here for a while because they're engineering hangers for our industry. And I think I continue to see things that people, and this is obviously from years and years of going to World of Concrete and even the Builders Show and different things, you're just seeing things where companies are legitimizing our industry by saying we're going to create a product for you. And so I see that as where that innovation could start happening. And like you said, I'm seeing the influx of the one-sided forms and different things like that, or the, like Nudura's, cut program, and pre-buck even, and some of the stuff that they do, like all these like window buck systems that are coming out, or specific ICF doors and safe room doors and things like that we're seeing. And from the architectural standpoint, from we have a drafting company, we draw ICF plans. That's what Heather does all day, and that's why she's got to get off here, because she's booked solid today. But we have just all these different things that we're able to pick up now that are specific for ICF, that I think is, to your point, I hope continuing to grow, where we'll start seeing more of that. That's going to affect the designs that we can do and different things. I mean, you see that.
It's innovative. Like, it's people, like you, Sam, that have all these innovative ideas and coming up with things and trying stuff and getting it out there. So I think that's what is leading it.
Yeah. So great answer. So third and...
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, we say all the time that, like, we can make it look like anything. And I think ICF gets a bad rap, and nothing against the builders that have been doing it for a while, but I think a lot of the times it's a box.
Yes.
It's got a roof, and it doesn't have the lightness that other structures can have. And it's driven by cost or the homeowner's desire, whatever it is. But like and this will probably, parlay, but we can make it look like and do things with concrete and ICF that a lot of other folks just wouldn't even dream of.
100%. I tell all of our clients when we're getting started that we are only limited by your imagination and your checkbook.
So, yeah. And I think that's
never limited by anyone's checkbook.
So again, great segue into the final question for you is, why Carbon Custom Homes? Why do people? This is your chance to tell us why to work with you guys and what you guys do different. Obviously, you've talked about a lot of them, but let's hear it.
I think the biggest pitch for us is we are a true innovator in the way in which we think, right? And so for me, we'll construction manage any project anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. Doesn't really matter. We're very willing to go and travel. We've got something coming up in Aspen soon, Florida, Georgia. So we're not limited by kind of the traditional mentality and mindset. And so that opens doors for our customers and our partners that a traditional kind of GC builder relationship doesn't. And ultimately, our places, the other luxury builders in the market, they talk about the finish, they talk about their heritage and their legacy and their, we've been doing this for X number of years and whatever, but they don't talk about the recipe or the science. And we do, right? We show you what is going to happen and how it's going to happen, and not only in the process, but in the end product. And I think that's the big differentiator, right? Go on another good looking builder's website, and they'll show you all the pretty pictures and all the product, but they don't talk about the guts and how they got there and why it's different. And we do. And I think, for the educated consumer that is going to spend millions and millions of dollars on their custom project, they're doing that research and they're wising up really fast that, like, this is a big investment and there's a benefit there. And it doesn't have to be more expensive than being a traditionally built home. It just needs to be thought through differently.
Love it. That's so dead on. And I think too, just for our listeners listening all over, the fact that they can reach out to you in different project areas. You're not limited to, for the right project, you guys travel and can work through that. So if you're listening to this and want to work with Sam on some stuff, then we will put all the contact information in the show notes and everything to make sure they can reach out to you and get in touch with you. Cause it's just great. It's honestly, it's refreshing to hear, builders that are thinking ahead of this, right? I mean, I think there's as somebody who's been in this a long time, and kind of, as I say, pulling the horses to the water, like just yanking them with both hands and dragging as hard as I can. It's so encouraging just to meet all these guys, meet you guys, all these new builders out there that are basically saying, yeah, dude, the sky's the limit. We're going to keep pushing this, and this is the way we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. Because, there'll always be the guys out there that are going to do it cheaper. There's always going to be the guys that will do it, half-assed and do it to the bare minimum, of what the code will allow, not what it should be. And so that is very encouraging to
It's
hear
the
builders do that.
worst way you can build a house, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And I'm
this
sure
is
you
the
guys feel the same.
minimum that you're allowed.
Minimum viable path. And, for us, like we act like an owner's rep in a lot of our projects where the transparency is there and then the client doesn't need it because they're seeing their billing, they're seeing their schedules, they're understanding the materiality, and they understand that it's kind of an engineered system as opposed to a how many nails did, someone put into the stud, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't have that same thing here. We are a recipe when it's concrete, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think we'll get everybody wrapped up here.
Yeah. Thank you so
Um,
much for coming on here
Thank you
today.
guys for having
and
me.
This was great.
Been really good. We'll kind of end out here with our pitch for WICFA, for the World Insulated Concrete Form Association.
All right. Now a word from our sponsor.
Oh, there we go. The ICF industry finally has a unified voice. The World Insulated Concrete Form Association, WICFA, is launching now, or has launched, to support advocacy, education, and industry growth. Be a part of it from day one. If you're a builder, manufacturer, engineer, distributor, or industry professional who believes in building stronger, more resilient structures, this is for you. Visit wicfa.org and join now. We are up and active. I even have on my note here, join the wait list. There's no wait list
No
anymore.
wait list anymore. It's
We're not
live.
waiting. So really good turnout so far. Really excited. We've actually contracted our top 2 sponsorships, which we're excited to announce here in the next couple episodes. Maybe we're just finalizing that, but we have the contracts in place that we wanted for some big name sponsors to come on board, which is super cool.
And we've got plans for our first general membership meeting, and we've got a special guest for that, for some business training and stuff. So
Yep. They got to have a special speaker, all that stuff. So yeah, get involved. Go to wicfa.org. Come to our website. Go to buildwithicf.com. All of that will link you back to the ability to join. Manufacturers are $2,500 annually. An industry professional member is $500 annually, and we do have DIY quarterly memberships available for $100. So jump on there, and then there's also sponsorship opportunities that you can reach out to me about at a later time. But yeah, no, that's good. Everybody knows how to get hold of us at Build with ICF on all of our socials, info@buildwithicf. And another little email that we started recently that's been pretty cool is
for code stuff.
if you're dealing with code stuff or things that are more technical, that you're having an issue with your ICF and you want to get a little special help on that, reach out to us at help@buildwithicf.com, and that way it goes to a specific mailbox, so we'll see that at the top of our mailbox. And as I always say, if you're reaching out to us through different media podcast platforms, please shoot me an email at info@buildwithicf. I try to keep up on all that stuff, but sometimes I don't get the notifications. But other than that, that's about it.
Yeah.
I would say we're
Thank you for listening, and
we appreciate you guys, and we will be hitting you up here real soon for some new listener question.
Yes.
I have built up a few of those too. So, and then keep sending in suggestions. We wouldn't have met Sam if it wasn't for Ashante reaching out to us and getting us in touch with him. So these are the great things that happen through our listeners, and people hear us and reach out to us. So please keep doing that and get us suggestions of people you want to hear on the podcast, and we'll keep doing it. So thank you, Sam, again.
Thank you guys.
Killed it. This is a great episode. I'm sure we probably can jam a couple more episodes with you in as time allows. So, all right, everybody, thanks. And we will touch base with you on the next episode. Have a great day.